Everybody. Tonight, I am super excited to have Craig on. I've been a fan of his for years, followed his YouTube, his success in life, and on YouTube and everything else. I'm really excited to have him on here. I was blown away at HR. He actually came and sought me out to introduce me and talk to me, and that really showed like how good of a guy he really is. So, everybody, welcome Craig Migliaccio. I hope I didn't butcher your name, but welcome to the show,
You got
buddy.
it right. Yeah, you got it right. Hey, Pat. So I've actually been a fan of yours. I've been watching you on LinkedIn and YouTube, but I've even was there when you were trying to work on your logo and everything. And I'm pumped that you are targeting the realm in which you're in, and bringing light to the commercial kitchens and all the work that's in there. That's a beautiful thing, man. I appreciate that, and I'm awesome to see what you're going to do in the future and I'm already pumped, obviously, to see what you're doing now.
Yeah, I'm in a mood right now where I'm trying to make a huge push. Like, I just get in these times where I want to do something and it just like strikes me. And like right now, I just want to make a huge push to try to promote like guys like me out there. I mean, it's kind of like a lost trade. I mean, we do everything, but a lot of people don't even know we exist, unfortunately. And it's a cool job, man. I do a lot of different stuff. I get to see a lot of different people, work in a lot of different environments, and it's cool. So thanks.
Yeah, man. Yeah, no, absolutely. The kitchens and, whether you're a maintenance staff or you're a service company, I mean, it's a huge deal. It's a huge avenue for technicians to be able to grow in and earn, a living for the trade and for their family. It's awesome.
Yeah, it's been a wild ride, man. I'm gonna turn this down a bit. Can you hear me?
Barely.
There it went back. All right, it's been a wild ride. I started off as electrician, which is a good trade. I'm not knocking anybody, and it just kind of progressed into hot side, and it's kind of progressed in refrigeration. I don't know what the next step is. There is another step, but it's cool. It's definitely a rewarding career field, and they all are. But I just take pride in going in some place and fixing something that's down, or a restaurant that can't open up, or someone's got tens of thousands of dollars of food in a freezer, and they're just like, if we lose this, we're going to have to close the restaurant down. I mean, people think because someone owns a restaurant, they're rich, and that's not really the case. I mean, if you own some big fancy thing that's doing really well, but most of the places, mom and pop, family-owned restaurants, you go in there and the owners are working, and guess what? If the owner's in there working, generally they're not getting a paycheck. So
yeah,
I try to do my best for them, be fair, but do a good job. So
yeah, you're right. Yeah, no, that's exactly it. The restaurants. That's one of those, it's so super tight and people don't realize it because they're not a service company. They're paying rent. They're paying all the food. If anything goes down, that's a huge loss to them. They have all those employees, all the cooking and all of the safety inspections, all the cleanings, all the service. I mean, it is a huge, huge deal. So yeah, there's a lot of overhead costs on a restaurant. So it's a huge deal that you're able to go in and save them. So that's awesome, man.
Yeah, someone reached out to me today, and they said they seen a post, and I was curious if it was your birthday today. Is it your birthday?
So my birthday is the 14th.
Okay.
But we had a bunch of photos, and I was like, I don't know, you get embarrassed putting something like that stuff out, So I was like, all right, fine, we can put it out. And so yeah, that was Matt. I saw that.
Matt's my buddy, man. He messaged me. He's like, "Is
awesome.
it his birthday?" And I was like, "I don't know." I was like, "That was put out pretty early this morning." I was like, "It may have been a couple of days ago." So I told him I'd ask you. So he's already in here asking about it. So it's cool.
Yep, the 14th. Yeah, no, they're awesome. The team members here, we're creating educational materials for the industry, and it takes a team, really does, to be able to do what we're doing. Brandon Price, Stanley, Patty, Frank. There's a lot of people on our team here to make everything happen, and birthdays and stuff like that. We try to take a little time to make somebody feel special. I ended up wrapping up Stanley and telling him he's a gift on his birthday, and then I made him blow up the candles, and he had the wrapping paper up to here, and he's like, yeah. You got to, I mean, my whole thing, you got to be able to joke, you got to be able to enjoy and invest in the people around you, and invest in the people, you're teaching online and everything like that. Because a lot of times we're just hard pressed and trying to, get a project done, get videos done. It's a lot. So we they celebrated my birthday. I appreciate it. It was cool.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Sounds like you got a great team working for you. So,
Awesome.
so I've stumbled on your YouTube years ago, just Googling how to do something. I stumbled across you, and then I really didn't know much about you. So I'm a bad person. When I find something, I like just dive into it. And I just like kept going through all your videos. I'm like, man, this guy, he does everything. The way you explain it and demonstrate it is what I really like. So I teach refrigeration, a basic refrigeration class twice a year for
Cool.
Cefesa. And I actually use some of your videos because I don't have all the tools I need to show these guys. But, I use like your tubing bending video where, it shows all different tools. And, I have a hand bender, and I need to bring a ratcheting bender next time I go, but I haven't brought that. But I can show them how the hand bender, the ratcheting bender, and everything like that. And the way you explain it makes so much sense. I'm like, man, why did I do this the hard way my entire life when I can just do it this way? And then, set up the torches and stuff like that. So there's a few of your videos I share with the class, and I tell them, to watch your videos and Chris Stevens and the other guys in the industry that are showing people the right way to do things. And so you've made a big impact on a lot of lives. I know you probably hear that a lot, but
it's we're in our kind of our little bubble here,
Mhm.
we get, emails and things like that come in, and I really appreciate hearing that. And like new teachers, especially during their first year, are struggling a lot, even no matter how busy I am, I usually try to make some time to like give them a call back or try to encourage them and things. And it's rewarding, and it's awesome because those teachers are now investing in all those other students for years,
Mhm.
but it's hard when you get into some type of teaching position, because a lot of times there's a lot of it's a political position kind of thing. It's like a weird, you got to
Yeah.
follow a lot of rules, and they're, confused about the funding and everything like that. And so, you can encourage somebody that's struggling while that teacher really cares about their students. So
Yeah, that's cool. So my class is only 5 days, and the guys have to have their EPA and a little bit of experience, nothing major, but man, it's 5 days just packed full of hands-on slides, everything I can. And it really helps though being able to show different ways. So I appreciate what you do. So that's cool. Um,
yeah,
how you've been in the industry for how many years now?
since 2002, I think. About 21 years. Yeah.
So
But,
what made
some of that's been teaching, and some of that was,
yeah.
I'm sorry,
Oh,
some
go
of that was
ahead.
teaching and also the company. But yeah, I guess we can get into that. 21 years is when I started ago.
So you started off just as a normal tech or an installer, or what made you decide you wanted to do HVAC?
So I did 1 year of college, and in my day, everybody was pushing everybody to go to college.
Mhm.
You're not going to be able to earn a living if you don't go to college. And I realized after 1 year of that I was like, I like hands-on. That's what brings me joy. And so every person in my family has been a carpenter at some point in their life, but I liked working on vehicles, like cars. I went to a school for working on vehicles for about a month and a half before. That was like a for-profit school, and I really didn't like it. I realized, like, I'm in the wrong place, basically.
Mhm.
And so I left there, and I thought about what could I do, that's going to be, say, recession proof, and what's going to make me be needed by people like all the time. And I thought, you know what, heating and cooling systems, everybody has one in their house. You also have water heaters. Everybody has one of those. And so that's what made me jump in. And I interviewed for a local HVAC company. I got the position there. I worked for 3 months. Unfortunately, that company, I mean, they were doing drugs and stuff like that, and they were like stealing time at the convenience store, like in the middle of the day. I'm a helper, right? I'm yelling at them, get back in the truck, get to the job. I'm yelling at them
Mhm. Mhm.
because I'm like, no, I want to learn, and like, what are we doing? What is going
Yeah.
on? And I'm like, is the industry like that? And so what I did is I left there and I went to another company, and I got hooked up with the installation manager of 36 years, and um, HVACR is where, yeah, absolutely. Thanks, reliable.
Mhm.
um, so I got hooked up with the installation and service manager of like 36 years at this second company, and I started growing immediately. It's a completely different like structure, completely different
Mhm.
atmosphere. It was huge. And here they wanted to teach me. Whereas the other place, for the initial 3 months, it was like, if they taught you, you might get a raise and they might not. And this is like this weird type of thing. I always tell people that come to me and are asking about their job, like their career, like where they're located at, and they explain to me, I always make sure that okay, you feel like they're not teaching you, but are you really pushing hard enough, like work wise? Like, are you, if you really have to check yourself and make sure that you're providing and you're performing properly at the company in order for them to want to invest in you. So it's a two-way street. But anyway, I left there and I started working for another company. I didn't go to school for HVAC, and I just learned in the field. And when I got to this second company, I asked the installation and service manager who I was working with as his helper, I said, hey, can I ask you questions like at lunchtime? I had a binder and I was just writing stuff down. He said, no, I don't mind. And I was like, oh, awesome. And I'm eating my sandwich and asking him questions like, well, what about this? What about this? Like, you know, where do I mount the gas pipe? You know, if we're going to be if they're setting a meter here and here's the stub, where am I going to knock through the block at and run the gas line? Like I had all of my measurements, all of my things that I was writing down. I called it my playbook. And then I would also ask him questions while we were working together on the job site. A lot of times we weren't working necessarily right next to each other, but when we were, I was asking him questions. And I said to him, I said, look, can I ask you questions? As long as it doesn't slow down my workflow. And if I do slow down, you need to tell me and I'll just be quiet. And he was totally on board with it. It was really cool.
That's cool. That's an amazing feeling when you have someone that's willing to take the time to explain it to you and so you understand it. I mean, there's a lot of guys in the trades where they will literally not teach somebody because they're scared they're going to take their job or take their money from them. And we got to do a better job than that. So,
yeah. So at this point right now, what I do is I remind people, and I see a lot of companies, right? I interact with a lot of companies at this point, and it's really cool to see, guess who the most valuable person in the company is besides the owner? It's the teacher in the company. It's the one who, when they hire a new technician, the new technician goes and works with this individual and make sure that they got the ropes of the company and make sure that they understand. And then they go off kind of on their own. And then they bring another one in and they shadow this individual. That's the one that's the most important and the most valuable and the most paid person in the company is the one that is investing. They're making it easy for the business owner because they're putting a structure in place for each of the new technicians coming in. And it's a beautiful thing. So that's what I remind technicians about. Invest in the younger generation and stuff like that. Invest in the person that's helping you. And I mean, that's what life's about, right? I mean, otherwise all we have is the job that we get done at the end of the day. We have the relationship with the homeowner for however many, a day, 2 days, you know, like however many hours. You have the relationships with the people that supply houses. What else do you have, you know, in life, you know, like at your job? Like it's more fulfilling to invest in the younger people that are trying to do life better, you know, and those are eager to learn. Yeah, invest in them. Don't rag on them and stuff like that. Like, man, don't stand in their way.
Yeah, I caught a little bit of hell for a post today. So I gave my apprentice, I've got the field piece job link manometers. I've got 2 sets of them. And I had my old, digital SDM 5MN or whatever it is, the field piece dual port manometer. Yeah. And we were doing startup and I gave it to him. I said, here, I don't need this anymore. I've got my job link ones. I want you to have this because they give all the guys the water ones.
SDMN 6, is that what that one? I
think it's
the one with the pump in it.
No, mine is
the 5. Got you.
So, but I gave him that because they give all the new guys the water ones. Well, in these commercial buildings anymore, I mean, just about everything's 2 pounds, and I could have gave him a water one, and he could have wore water for the rest of the day. He could have took a shower, but I was like, and most of the guys would do that and laugh, and I'm just like, man, I don't want to do that to that guy. I don't want to embarrass him. I mean, I can give him a heads up now, and maybe down the road he makes that mistake. But you know what? He's not going to make it on my watch. I'm going to teach him. Hey, you want to use this, especially in new construction. It could be a 2 pound or a 5 pound system. I said, you want to make sure you don't blow water all over the place. And some people were like, I can't believe you did that. You should have let him learn that way. I'm like, man, we need to get past those days, man.
I mean, honestly, I only showed that in the classroom. That should not. We don't really use that out in the field that much. We're using our instruments. You just got to make sure that you know how to utilize them. I don't think that there's any problem with that at all. Yeah. I think that's an awesome thing, actually.
Yeah. So, I mean, we got to do a better job teaching. I mean, there's a lot of guys that is grumpy and everything else, and I get that. But they're saying in my industry, in the restaurant side of it, that we're aging out like 20-1. And I'm like, what are we going to do? And that's a crazy number to think about. For every 20 it leaves, only one's coming in. Like that's absolutely mind-boggling.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I mean, we need a replacement, for the technicians that are basically aging out. And that's why I say too, like for any technicians that are following the old school way of thought of, they're going to get, if I teach you too much, you're going to get the raise and I'm not going to get the raise. I really don't believe that's the way we're going. I mean, we're in so high of a demand right now. And even when if your body falls apart, like that's the thing. Once you have the
Mm-hmm.
knowledge, nobody can take it from you. So
Mm-hmm.
you become valuable. They're going to put
Yep.
you wherever, even if you need to go, at the shop and answer the phone calls or whatever, like, and try to walk the service technicians like through a problem or something like that. They're still valuable. So I think that knowledge is valuable. The skills that you can perform are valuable. So I don't think, we're going away. I think we just need to continue to invest in everybody around us.
Yeah, it's a crazy time right now. So yeah, definitely invest in your teammates. I mean, especially the ones that want to learn. I mean, you're always going to have the guys that just settle for what they are, and you're going to, I try to push them to be better, and it doesn't get anywhere. It's just they stay in that same boat, they stay in that same mentality. So you're going to just accept that, but make sure you build into the ones that want it, and focus on those guys. So, yep. So, how long did you work in the field before you started teaching or anything else you started doing?
So I only had about 3 years, okay,
Wow.
in the field before the company owner sold his business. And so at that time, I decided to start my own business, which was half carpentry, half HVAC. And so I was a little too early, honestly. Looking back at it, I think I was just eager, but what I did though, is when the company owner sold his business, he made like a general contracting business, and I started subbing some work out for him. And then I also took some ads out in the paper and things like that. And so during that time, it only took that 1 year for me to build up enough business to where I didn't have to advertise anymore, and I actually didn't really continue to do work for the my mentor, basically. But I still, like, we've always been great friends and stuff like that. And I asked him to come and speak to the students at the school when I was teaching at the high school, and he would come in and spend that time. And he was part of my advisory board and stuff like that. He always knew how to treat the customers really well, and he was very particular. And so I always appreciated him. He would actually whistle when he came on the job sites to let you know you were there, because he didn't want to be disappointed in case you were like taking a break or something like that. You knew you were, like, I wasn't going to do that. But I mean, there's other guys on the job site where they were like taking a break or whatever. They heard him whistling. They're like running over to the thing and going to do something. I'm like, what are you doing? Like, just keep working. What are you doing? But he was very, very good. So I learned a lot under him. He challenged me a lot and allowed me to grow very well. So I really appreciated him. But anyway, so then I had my company for about, I would say 8 years or something like that. And then at that time, we had our first child, and my daughter is 13 years old. I should know that. Don't. my daughter's 13. My son's 11. After we had her, we were looking for maybe I should get insurance instead of buying it outright. So that's another thing nowadays. People don't understand what that means. A lot of times you're paying half, the business is paying half, oh, we're covering your insurance, but that doesn't mean they're covering all of it. And it's very expensive anyway. So it's kind of the same thing. Why don't you just buy it yourself? What's the point? But anyway, so I applied and got into a school, and I was their maintenance technician, and I was also their construction manager there for 2.5 years. And during that time, some of their students got to shadow me on the job sites and things. It was through their career program. And so this school was actually Pine Lane Learning Center. And so if you got kicked out of a lot of the schools that were in the state of New Jersey, like it served like 32 school districts. This was the last school district that you could possibly get into to get a high school diploma and like be there in person kind of deal. So they had this career program. And so that was really cool. I really appreciated that, being able to teach the students. And sometimes they would bring like one of the high school classes in, and we would speak and show them how to use tools and things like that. We had to be real careful and all that. So between that and then also working with the youth group kids at our church, I realized that I really liked investing in the younger generation and coming alongside of them in life and also teaching them skills that's going to be able to make them valuable, for their family life. Because family is like hard, relationships are hard. Like you want to take and so like if you have a financial problem, it puts stress on marriage, children, all that type of stuff. Like I don't want that for anybody.
Mm-hmm.
And so I want to invest in those people. I want to make sure they communicate well. I want to make sure that I can set them up as best as possible. It always takes them, I mean, they have to be eager.
Mm-hmm.
They have to be the one, wanting the information and all that type of stuff. But I just like to come alongside those that are eager to learn and grow just in life and in the trades and stuff like that. So anyway, 3 years in the beginning, HVAC, I was a helper. Then I was a installation technician, and then I was doing on-call service as well as installations. I focused on existing homes, so it was residential, light commercial. So I did that until the the owner sold. Then I had a carpentry and HVAC business that I basically just shut that down completely as of 2 years ago. I was still keeping it alive, but then we started focusing more and more on the education. So anyway, it was 8 years or so full time just with my business, or maybe it was 10 years. I can't remember anymore. I'm getting old, man. So then it was another 2.5 years at a school as their facility maintenance director and also maintenance technician. So anything from, we were building like a home ec room, and I would oversee, solar installation, or I would oversee the home ec room being built. A lot of that I was doing myself and things like that. All the HVAC systems, the kitchen, all of the refrigerators, all of the fryers, all that type of stuff. Just keeping it alive, milk cooler. But so then after that, or during that, is when I saw that there was a night school position open at the county technical school, where I realized I could get in there and teach the adults at night. So I did that. I applied, got in, I started teaching at night 1 day a week with the adults. And then I saw that there was a position opening up for the HVAC teacher. And I was trying to get my HVAC state teaching certificate. And that was a big holdup. And so the long and short of that was that I had to take 42 college credits in like 3.5 months, which is ridiculous.
Holy smokes.
Yeah. And I'm not that person, right? Like I'm not necessarily, if you want to call it like a very intelligent or very like, oh, I learn it and then obviously I know it all and I can just test out and stuff. This was like, I did one class for 3 college credits. I took tests and got credits, and they were called CLEP. You can get like 3 college credits for each test. You can buy credits. And then I did a bunch of prior learning assessments on HVAC. So I had a person with a doctorate reviewing those. And so they would just like every Saturday I was pumping out like a 13 to 19 page paper. I had to learn how to write. And here's the deal. Here's the deal. The long and short of it is the state was in my way because they were saying, oh no, self-employed people don't have enough experience. Like they only do 20 hours a week. This is literally the emails I got, they only do 20 hours a week. And so you don't have enough hours to apply for this teaching cert. And they wanted 4 years. All they needed was 4 years experience. And the ridiculous side of it is that if I worked for somebody for 4 years, it's a 1-page paper, and it just have to have the owner sign and say, yes, he worked that amount of hours. That's it.
Oh boy.
You know what I had to do? I hired my accountant, and we went through every single invoice that I had, put hours on every single invoice over those 8 years or whatever. It was like, and it was like 8 years. And to come up with the correct amount of hours for just 4 years, we were way over it. So I submit that, and it's within their paperwork that it says they would accept it that way. Guess what they did? They rejected it. I was like, what are you kidding me? How can you reject your own thing? They didn't like my tax code, like whatever the tax code that I filed under. So I understand that. My business was half carpentry, half HVAC. I was a Bryant dealer, so Bryant paint carrier. But long and short of it is my HVAC business hours way went over that. I was doing 60, 80 hours a week all the time, service calls at night, change outs, we were pushing through the night, just like a lot of people. So anyway, I ended up using the 2 years working for that prior company, that experience mixed with an associate's degree, which I didn't have. So I had to rush and get that associate's degree and then apply to the state to get a state teaching certificate. It's actually called a certificate of eligibility in order to teach HVAC. So first they awarded me building maintenance. So like you know, you don't have enough hours, blah, blah, blah. So they gave me the building maintenance. I did the college credits. I got the associate's degree in electrical mechanical systems and something degree 4.0 because I took one class, and everything else was prior learning assessments.
Nice.
And then the testing out. And, you know, like I said, I was writing those big papers. I submitted that, got a certificate of eligibility for sheet metal and then HVAC. I applied to the school right in time. And with those three, I was able to apply and get in front of somebody who was actually favored for that position, which is my belief. It's all just my belief. Nothing is, you know what I mean? Like, it is what it is. I think that somebody else would have got it if I did not go out of my way to get those certificate of eligibilities ahead of time. It's kind of one of those things that somebody had mentored me at the school in the adult program. His name was Rusty Miller. He passed away, but I really looked up to him, and I asked him how to navigate that system, you know, and he's like, just get all the certificates that you possibly need. Then they can't say no, you know? And so that's what I did. And then I got hired as the HVAC teacher there. I still had my business. I always kept my business. I always kept my good HVAC customers, and I kept going with that. And so then I was teaching during the daytime. But the thing is, the second I walked into that school, I realized, hey, wait a second. I really like investing in the younger generation. I really like teaching HVAC. I always enjoyed teaching my helpers. Like, I'm sure you feel that way. I always loved doing that. The second I got in that school, I realized, wait a second, I've never been in a school. I went to like Carrier Northeast trainings, and I did obviously the supply house trainings and things like that. And I didn't want to just repeat what was stated beforehand. And so I had to learn how to write curriculum. I took the whole room apart, and like, basically I just got in there, and it was like 30-year-old crap. Basically the whole room was filled up with it. And so we had to rebuild the entire room. They didn't really have money for the program. And it was like, I was bringing in a bunch of used equipment. We were building systems, and we got the whole thing laid out. And eventually they backed me, the school, meaning, and provided me with the funding a little at a time. And so then, but the whole point was like, I walked in there and I said, oh crap, I don't want to just repeat what was passed on to me. Okay. So I was doing experiments at night and things like that in order to do testing to make sure what I was saying was actually true. And that's where I learned a lot. Like, that was my like proving ground, I guess you'd say, you know, with that.
That's crazy. So I'm pretty much self-taught as well as far as refrigeration goes. And, you know, I just read what I could. You know, I started refrigeration probably 16 years ago. I mean, the internet was there, but it wasn't like it is now. It's just, you know, calling, relying, people asking a lot of questions like you did. And it's just, it was definitely hard. And there's still days where I get my butt kicked. I mean, I think I have a grasp on it, and I see something one day and I'm like, what's this? Why is it doing this? And it's just, you never know what you're going to get into. So that's cool. So what made you, so how long did you teach the program there for the community college? Or
so that was a local county technical high school. So
okay.
Then what I did is I taught during the daytime with high school students, 3 levels. So we did that for 6 years. So I did adult teaching at night with the HVAC program for 8 years, the teaching during the daytime for 6 years.
Wow.
During that process, during the beginning, I was like reading code books and everything. I was reading everything I could get my hands on right through, like all through it. And I'm like, I can't hand these 15-year-old students and some with learning disabilities these books and things like that, like this, you know what I mean? Like I went, and I also found that they didn't have procedures in them. You know, it's just theory. And I'm like, oh crap, how am I going to teach them to do their job? Like we need to focus on the skills and theory. It's got to be both. It can't be one, you know? But anyway, so that was a time frame. It was 6 years. But after the first 4 years of teaching in the high school, that's when I started making the videos. Actually, the first 3 years, I think, is when I started making the videos. And time flies, man. And so I started out with just a Logitech C920 webcam and just put it on the computer, put it on a laptop, and recorded myself. And I barely did much editing on it. I didn't know how to edit. You know, it was just kind of one of those things where somebody had challenged me. A friend of mine had challenged me and said, hey, if I knew, meaning him, knew the construction trade or field, I would start making some training videos and things like that. And I'm like, oh yeah. He's like, you should do that. You know, you should check it out. I'm like, maybe. And what I thought was like, I could use those videos as like substitute lesson plan kind of things. Like my students could watch. I could still be teaching my students if I get sick. And inevitably I would get sick like 4 times a year. Just I couldn't with all the germs and everything in the school and stuff like that. Like I would inevitably get sick for like 1 to 2 days, 3 or 4 times a year. You can't help it. It's terrible. Anyway, you really got to love those guys, you know?
Yep. Kids, man.
Yeah. But, so I started doing the videos and I started writing the book while I was in the school. And so here we are at the 6-year mark. Heavily invested in making videos, answering at that point on YouTube every single comment that was coming in, everyone.
Holy cow.
And then YouTube also changed their stuff so they don't like let us know all the comments. I would get notifications on when somebody answered me and everything. Anyway, so at the 6-year mark, doing videos at night, teaching during the daytime, teaching the adults 2 nights a week, making the training videos, answering comments and questions, writing the book, doing service calls at night as well, and change outs on the weekends. And you know how some of those go. It's like some of them were even 16-hour change outs and stuff like that. 8-hour, 10-hour, 12-hour. A lot of them had ductwork problems too that you had to fix. A lot of times it's not just hey, quick, change the indoor and change the outdoor unit. Where a lot of times it's the furnaces, and now you're changing from an 80% to a 90%, and you got to do all the venting and everything. So I was doing all that. Well, guess what? Guess what? I got burnt out, and I ended up getting mono, and I couldn't figure out what in the world was wrong with my body. By 11 a.m., I couldn't think anymore.
Wow.
And I didn't know what was wrong. And that was in January of that school year. And by April, during April break, is the first time I had like a chance to breathe, you know? And so I went and got checked out at the doctor, and they're like, dude, you got mono. I was like, oh, I thought I was just getting old. I didn't know what's going on. And so I, at that point, I talked with a good friend of mine who's actually like almost like another grandparent to me, Tom and Barb Crothamill. We just visited them. But anyway, I sat down with them for like 3 hours, kind of like laid everything out, prayed about it and things like that. Whether I should leave the school or stay. There's a bunch of other reasons as well that I ended up leaving. But there's some things with the night school program and different stuff that it was not good at that time. Now it's okay again. But anyway, it's one of those issues. But anyway, I decided to leave at that time and kind of pursue the education part. And I wanted to finish the book and focus on the videos. I am kind of a private person. I don't know if people realize that or not. So when I left the school, they just assumed I was going and doing my construction business. I said, I'm leaving and I'm just pursuing my business. And they were like, oh, you're going back into construction. And I didn't really say anything, you know? So I just continued in the education realm and finished writing the book over the next year where I was healing from that whole mono thing. I think it affects everybody a little differently. But it took some time, man. You know, it's still, you know, it messes you up a little bit. But anyway, I worked with a retired teacher, English and math teacher, for the next year while doing the videos and while doing my HVAC company jobs. Like I was still doing that to bring the income in while I was working on that book. And basically I found out during the first book that the words that I had and what I thought I was saying was not actually the case. It did not actually mean what I thought it meant. You know, and so he really helped me to teach me more how to write. Everything is a journey. Everything takes a long time. And I'm not that person. I'm not a book writer. I'm not really a video person or whatever. The thing is, those things are standing in my way from getting the information to the technicians that I want to get them to. Same thing with the whole, we're not going to give you a state teaching certificate or whatever. Like, you're not going to tell me no. I'm going to press forward, and I'm not going to let that stand in the way. This is in the way for me being able to invest in others. So I'm just going to do whatever I need to do. I didn't want to go to college and do that type of stuff, but I ended up having to in order to meet the need. So that's what we did.
Yep. I'm the same way. You tell me no, I'm going to figure out a way to do it regardless. You're not going to tell me I can't do something. And it's gotten me in trouble, but most of the time it pays off. I mean, sometimes you bite off a little more than you get you at the time, but you get your way through it eventually. So
it's diligence because you care.
Yep, exactly. So that's cool. So you walked away from the school. So you focus on the book, focus on your business. And then when was this? How long ago was this?
So we've been doing our first video on YouTube was February 2016. And I've watched how YouTube has changed all of its stuff like a bunch of times since then. We launched the book in May of 2019, and So after 1 year, after leaving the school, while still doing the videos, while writing the book, and while still utilizing my company for income for the family, like my HVAC contracting company, and it was a small company. It was just me and a helper. It wasn't like some massive company or anything like that. It was always just me and a helper. That was it. Or apprentice. So after that first year of trying to focus more on the educational realm, we brought on Brandon. Brandon was a good friend of mine, and I was in his wedding, and we've known each other because he was in our church youth group back when I was helping out at youth group, and we've been in each other's lives ever since. And I really trusted him, and he actually was in the HVAC field as well at that time. And I told my wife, I was like, look, I need help with the technological side of this to like move this forward in a way where I feel like I need to. I feel like I cannot teach enough because all these other things are in the way. I need help, essentially. And so she was like, her initial reaction was, well, if you bring him on, all the income that we have right now goes to him. You have zero, And I was like, yeah, and it's rough. But like I could see not where we were going. I could see where we were going. And so she slept on it that night. And the next morning she woke up and she's like, okay. She said it was revealed to her that when has this guy ever let you down? When has he not failed, or when has he failed, his promise to you, meaning to my wife. And so she said, you just need to support him. You can't support the situation, just support the man. That's what she said to me. Dude.
That's good, man.
Wow.
Do you have a woman behind you that'll do that? I mean, I'm blessed. I'm lucky to have the woman I have. It sounds like you got a great one too. I mean, so yeah, that's cool. Hats off to her for believing you,
Yeah. Yeah. And Brandon has grown like crazy on the technological side, allowed us to do a lot of the things that you see us doing. And so he does a lot of the graphic design and things like that, our website. And he's just grown into these roles. He really was a big part of this mini split book that we just put out. Even with that mini split book, man, people were like, somebody's got to do it. For like years. They're like, you have to do it. Somebody's got to do it, like constantly.
It might as well be
you don't have anything on the mini splits. Everybody's like frustrated, It's like, all right, I guess tag, we're it. I don't know. The mini split book took 2 years, but yeah. So anyway, I brought on Brandon after the first year, and then we started growing because we then launched the book. And I would be happy if we sold like 4 copies a day of that, and we sold a lot more. And it was very encouraging to me that it went over that well. And I think we put in there a lot of the procedures that everybody else ignored in the past. I think that was a big deal because how can you teach people without teaching them the step-by-step processes? And guess what? There's 15 different ways to do a job. So you have to give them an efficient one, and also tell them why these old rules of thumbs may not be good. They can then branch off from there and go slightly this way or slightly this way, but they have to have a starting point. You can't just talk the theory and then expect them to do their job. And so we always targeted like the new technicians that were like thrown to the wolves in the field, or the students in school that were just more eager to learn. Like that was always our target audience. And then along the way, obviously, it's also like helping with our troubleshooting guides and different stuff that we've developed, like helping even the, say, advanced technician, but maybe they're not doing that specific task all the time, so it just helps them as well. So it's all been really encouraging. Like even when I started on YouTube, I started doing videos for almost 5 or 6 months with zero traction, like zero. By that time, I had like 45 videos out. Because I was like, well, I'm going to keep putting them out because I could use them in the classroom. And then over that summer that happened, all of a sudden these views came in, and then all the comments that came in was like so encouraging to me. I thought like at that time, because I'm not really big on social media, that type of stuff, like at least in the past, like personally. But that's why like Facebook, I don't like me personally. I don't post a lot. Like I'm pretty private individual. Like not that there's anything wrong. I just like my space or whatever. Yeah. But I also like investing people. Like I'll have a quality phone call with somebody and take the time, but I don't like to post every little thing that I'm doing. It's just my personality, I guess. I don't know whether good or bad. Anyway, so what was I saying with that?
Talking about Brandon and the mini split book and everything you guys are building right now.
Yeah, the comments were huge. So on
Yeah.
social media, I thought everybody was going to bust my chops and like just be maybe negative about it. But there was so much encouraging comments that like of that it was helping people like lift them even like out of poverty and stuff like that, like crazy stuff, and emails that were coming in and just helping them on the job sites. And I was just amazed by that. And so that really encouraged me to keep moving forward. And also there was that calling me out if I said something wrong or said something like confusing. And so that helped me grow as well. That was huge. And then all the questions that came in and I was trying to answer those questions so that I would be helpful to them. And if I didn't know the answer, I had to try to figure it out because it's like, who else is left? It's kind of one of those things, you know what I mean? Like, I'm just going to try.
You took the criticism the right way. You build it, you accepted it and you build on it and you learn from it. That's a good thing. I mean, a lot of guys will just troll on the internet, but if I do something wrong, and someone tells me, I learn from it. But, if you're going to tell someone they're doing it wrong, explain why they're doing it wrong, though. Don't just throw it in their face, tell them they're stupid. Hey, do it this way, and be supportive. If you want people to grow and to do things right, you got to treat them with respect and, explain it to them. I mean, no one's going to learn when you go in there and just say they're stupid and they're doing it wrong. Then you don't have a leg to stand on that point. Why are they doing it wrong? You didn't explain it. You just made them feel dumb. You're just trying to be better to somebody. There's no need for that.
Yeah. And some of the answers are like, oh, I've been doing it this way for 30 years. It's like, okay, but are you still open to a more efficient or newer method? There's some things that get misconstrued and even doing the EPA 608 test about like the freezing water in the refrigerant lines and stuff like that. And just all kinds of little things that people tend to be confused on for the rest of their career, or like, oh no, I need to do an hour and a half long vacuum. Well, no, you don't, well, that's when I take my lunch though, well, okay. Want an hour and a half long lunch break? I mean, like what, if it takes 10 minutes to do a vacuum or 5 minutes or 2 minutes for that matter, and you can prove it with a decay test or standing vacuum test, then, like you've done a good job. You're down at 200 microns. You're not at 500. You're holding it. You're proving that there's a vacuum instead of, just shutting the vacuum pump off and quickly dumping the refrigerant in and hoping you had a vacuum during that transition period. Like this silly stuff, but people have got by over time, brazing without flowing nitrogen and stuff like that. Or like, well, I didn't see any effect. Well, it's because you left the job site, man. You know what I mean? Like you're the installer, you're not the service tech, and so you have gummed up TXVs, you have lack of lubrication at the compressor, you've got clogged strainer screens. It's the service techs later that find it. So anyway.
Yeah, Matt says, I don't care how long someone has been doing it, something, or do it right or don't do it at all. Yeah, I mean, they got to be willing to learn, though. I mean, like I said, there's guys that just settle, they're set in their ways, and they don't want to do better. They don't want to learn. I mean, you just do your best to explain it to them and, go move on. So, unfortunately, then there's callbacks on them, and people like me got to go fix it. So,
yeah.
So yeah, that's cool. That's cool. So, now, what all do you have to offer? I went through your website and seen, you get your books. You got a new facility. Is that what you just opened up a new facility?
Yeah. So we bought the building about a year and a half ago. We were literally working out of my home, in shop, basically. It was like me and Brandon upstairs, my wife and the 2 kids in the middle doing homeschool. Right. And then we have our digital asset person, making images. And then we had our distribution coordinator with the books and the shipments and stuff like that downstairs. And we're like up and down. We'd be like talking about something. And my wife's like, hey, be quiet.
We're trying to learn down here.
Yeah. We were doing what we could do at that location. And so then we bought this building. It was like a year and a half, 2 years ago at this point. And so we were remodeling this and basically while doing the mini split book. So the first book I did, with an offsite editor. Okay, so 3 other people. And then this last book, we basically did fully in-house here. And so at this location, it's like 3,800 square foot, but it's like 120 foot long, and it's on concrete, and it's like a big, large pole barn commercial building. So we have a training facility room and where I do the videos at. We've got me and Brandon's offices. We're building another office in the back. We've got a testing lab for like the different manufacturers and stuff like that, tools and supplies, materials, and things like that. We do some of that. And then we have our distribution room with all of our products and things. And we've got multiple people in there in order to get the shipments out. So we're selling our products on Amazon and on our website. So basically, as far as the, products go, we have quick reference cards for refrigerant charging of single speed air conditioning systems. And so they've got refrigerant weights and superheat subcooling, like step-by-step stuff. They're polystyrene, so they don't degrade. You can throw them in the service bag. Like I was putting them in the oven and testing them with like oils and like, is the paint going to come off? Like with scratching them with the keys, like, like I'm not putting out some crap, like I'm not putting out some paper stuff. And, so anyway, we got those quick reference cards because those I used in the back of the classroom, but they were in paper form at that point in time. This is like the 15th iteration of stuff I was using in the classroom, essentially. And then the refrigerant charging and service procedures book. And so that is everything that has to do with the refrigerant side of a single or 2-speed air conditioning system. And then we have 1,000-question workbook for that. Wow. Along with a self-study answer key. So it's 1,000 questions that I really want the technicians to know. And a lot of the EPA 608 test questions are actually integrated into that book. I obviously taught a lot of that in the school and at the night school. It's like the base level certification that we have for the industry. So that's kind of integrated in there, a lot of the test questions. And then we have our refrigeration cycle posters. So there's 7 posters. It's the refrigeration cycle of just the basic one. Because if you're teaching in a classroom, those rectangle ones, the students like memorize those. Or like, Mr. Mig, I understand what's going on, but where is that on an actual system? So we started laying the refrigeration cycle over the actual systems, like mini split systems, heating mode, air conditioning mode, a regular single speed heat pump system and heating mode, air conditioning mode, a walk-in box. So we made all that. So we've got those posters. We also have PowerPoints for the refrigeration cycle for teachers. We've got the basics for checking the refrigerant charge PowerPoints. Wow. And so we have a lot of people asking us to develop more PowerPoints for the teachers. It's just time, man. Everything takes time. So then we have those items at the website. We also have the ebook for that. And we just came out with the mini split book, which is all the refrigerant side and the electrical side. So that is not talking about VRF systems or mini VRF that have a branch box. It's talking about single zone to multi-zone where you have all of the indoor units connected to one outdoor unit. So it's referring to all of that and the issues, that you might face and things like that. So the refrigerant and electrical stuff for a mini split. And we have the full outlines are available at the website. So you can see every single thing that's in it, like all the topics basically. And over on Google Play, there's sample pages, so you can like go right through and like read a lot of that, see what's going on with that. So we have our mini split book as an ebook as well. So that's available on Apple Books and Google Play as well. So a lot going on. So that's the profits. That's the for-profit products, we'll say. You know what I'm saying? Like that's how we keep the lights on. Literally, like that is the main source of income for our company is our products. Because YouTube, you have like the advertising monies and stuff like that, but we don't even enable like the non-skippable ads because I find those terribly annoying, and I don't want that to be in the way of somebody learning or something like that. So we allow the skippable ones for YouTube. So it's like a little bit of say income from that, but not really. Obviously they're free videos. We spend at least 20 hours on every single 5-minute video or something like that. You know what I mean? Like that's a huge thing. We're constantly developing those, and those take a lot of work. They could be 40 hours. They could be even 60. The illustrated ones take a long time. So it's a group effort. Whether it's me recording or me setting up the scenes and building the scenes and things like that. We're actually looking to try to bring another person on to help me with those types of things and some of the other social media postings and the shorts and stuff like that. Just to make educational posts. I don't really care for if we're going to spend time on something, it's got to be like an educational based thing. So anyway, on the website also, we have our articles. So we put a bunch of articles there. We've got quick tips. We've got some calculators there. We have quizzes. The quizzes, man, I'm blown away by how many people utilize those quizzes. It's amazing. So we've got 10 quizzes there. They're just 10 questions. And Gil Cavey was telling me he uses them even for his technicians in his company, which I was like, wow, really? That's awesome. And so yeah, we have those, and we have other teacher resources there. And we just built a teacher resource page. So it
Mhm.
tells teachers how to build like inexpensive teaching trainers. If a school is limited on their funding, I don't want them to like blow it all on a very expensive like trainer kind of thing, like a
Mhm.
one thing. I want them to have a mix of all kinds of different things in their classroom, along with the small training board stuff. Like your training board things are the ones that you would utilize like for your initial students as they come in
Mhm.
through the program. So we
Mhm.
have an electrical training board with step-by-step instructions, like wiring diagrams and all that stuff, like just for free. Like just use them, please. In the
Nice.
classroom. So that is my like eighth iteration of the electrical training board that I was using in the classroom. And
Yeah,
so,
we at Safesa, we have something like that. They utilize a lot of those in some of the other classes, but my class, I really utilize it in like wiring up a walk-in freezer. So you have your
yeah,
defrost clock, you have your defrost heaters, you have your uh, your defrost termination fan cycle control. I
yeah,
mean, and it's a bunch of stuff on a board, and they took it a step further than I would. They gave them one color wire, so it's like, in real life, you have, I try to do 5 colors, so you can, everything's pretty easy, but they give them one color wire, everything's red, and they're like, figure it out. I'm like, oh my gosh. I go over to check the guy's work, and I'm like, I just see all these red wires, and I start chasing them. I'm like, I can't do this. It makes my eyes hurt.
yeah.
And to be honest, every time I teach, I have to literally go in there the day before, and I have to do it myself just to walk back through it. I'm like, because I don't do it every day, but I have to walk back through it because I don't want to seem like I don't know what I'm doing. But I tell the guys, I'm like, look, I said, it's the one color is the hardest thing you'll ever do. I said, in the real world, you're gonna have 5 colors. I said, we're teaching you this in case you run into a situation where it hits a junction box and an electrician changes colors, or they went to an old junction box and they left the old wiring. I said, you're going to have to be able to, check the stuff out. And the trainer boards they're really cool. So I look forward to going through some of the stuff you have to offer on those, and probably, integrating them into some of the stuff I do.
Cool, man. Yeah, no, it's awesome. We just came up with the like some mini split ones, the pressure
Mm-hmm.
transducer and the EEV, little trainer board things. Those are more like you only need one in the shop just
Yeah.
to show them how that works. But the electrical boards, you need one for every student. I'm not
Mm-hmm.
really into the whole like, oh, you have partners working on one project. No, no, no. An
Mm-hmm.
individual is going to struggle through
Mm-hmm.
this on their own. Otherwise, they're not going to learn. Groups things don't seem to work very well. And that's why I say, like, in a classroom, you have to have enough
Mm-hmm.
systems for every individual to work on, because when you struggle, that's when it locks it into the brain, because then you generate the questions as the student to then ask the teacher.
Yep.
And then that's how you learn, So if it's just a teacher teaching good quote unquote curriculum, it doesn't matter. You know what I mean? It's not retained.
Yep.
And so that student has to come up with the questions themselves in order to get the answer. They're eager, they're excited to learn. So it's like a little bit in the shop, a little bit in the classroom, a little bit in the shop, a little bit in the classroom, back and forth, back and forth. And the majority of it should be in the shop,
Yep.
with the
So
hands-on and building the things and troubleshooting.
when I took over this program, it was like 80%, 85% slides, PowerPoint slides. And like, I was running they had Copeland slides from like the 70s and 80s. And like, these compressors aren't even here anymore. Why am I teaching this? This is irrelevant for what we're doing. So I've knocked it back to like 50-50. And ideally, I'd like it to be like 70% in the classroom and 70% in the labs and 30% in the classroom. That way, the guys are up, they're getting their hands on stuff. They're not falling asleep. They're not sitting there staring at their phone. They're interacting. So, I mean, the problem is we're getting more and more equipment in. So luckily we can do some stuff. Like I have a small walk-in box. It's literally like 3 foot tall, 6 foot long, and like 3 foot wide. And the problem is I'm trying to get these guys to superheat. Well, the thing shuts off in like 2 minutes because it's got a full size condensing unit evaporator in it, but it's only, 20 cubic feet or something stupid like that. It's like a big deep freeze you'd have at your house, but it's got a full size system on it. So I'm sitting there standing in front of the door, trying to block airflow, trying to keep it at, consistent, like 40 degrees. And it's hard to set superheat something like that. But it's hands-on is where it's at, man.
Yeah.
Hardly anyone learns from reading or watching. I mean, you will learn from that, but it's just, you don't, I don't retain it. Most guys don't retain it from just reading it over and over. You get it in front of their hands, illustrations, walk them through it, and they're going to learn it and they're going to retain it. I feel.
Yeah. So like the teachers in the classroom, you're still teaching even in the shop. Like they're doing their individual things, and you can pull them together, and you're teaching like on live machines. Like, that's what I mean. Like, there's too
Yep.
much in front of the classroom of just a teacher talking, more so than like, you need to do that. Like, you do need to do that a little bit, like some, like obviously with the refrigeration cycle stuff and some of the electrical stuff. And there's a lot to it.
Yeah.
Anyway, and like gas pipe sizing, all of that stuff, ductwork things. So, but in the back of the shop, you know, they struggle through it, and then you can pull them to the side. You can then go over it with them. You can stand behind them. You can watch what they're doing. You know what they're struggling with, and you can have them ask the right questions in order for them to like retain the information. And so, like, you might be doing superheat or subcooling or something like that on a live machine in the back of the room, and that's what I would do. I have like a machine running, and all right, you see the pressure here. All right, now we're going to convert that to saturated temperature. Okay, make sure you don't tell somebody what you got, you know, and then we you know, then figure it out. Okay, are we overcharged, undercharged, correctly charged? And then they would say what it is, and I'd say why. Now, why? Okay, and then they would have to explain it. So if they got something wrong, you know, you'd know. Okay, they didn't convert it to the saturated temperature right. You know, they didn't have the they didn't take the line temp minus a sat temp for superheat or something like that. They did it reverse. They're like, oh, how do I get a negative? They're like, well, you know, there's no such thing as a negative superheat or negative subcooling. And so, no, it's that's what you need to do. And you don't have to have a lot of money. You can have just used systems. There's a lot of contractors around, and those contractors are willing to help those schools and help those young technicians. And they actually want to then, you know, bring those students aboard into their company. The problem where we have it is like the pay rate, you know, trying to make sure that the pay rate makes sense for these people that you've invested 3 years in. It's different when, like, one of the big things when I was starting out was the students that were coming out of these schools had a lot of knowledge, but not a lot of skills. And so even though I'm building knowledge and skills with those students in the beginning, throughout the middle and everything like that, and then pressing hard with that stuff at the end, at the very end of the year, before they leave that classroom, they're going back over those basic skills again. I want to see how well you're using sheet metal tools. I want to see how well you are brazing, like how quickly, how good those joints look. I want to see all of those skills that's going to make you very valuable the second you walk into that business, because then you show that and you have the knowledge to then back it up, you're going to grow real rapidly. And so you're never going to have a chance to utilize your knowledge if you don't have enough skills to make your position profitable for the company.
So when I teach, I'm only doing 5 days, and I always tell the guys on the first day, look, I'll be here at 7 o'clock. Class doesn't start till 8, but I'll be here at 7 o'clock and have that door open. And because I'm still a technician. I still got to do emails. I still got regular job stuff I got to follow up on, you know, check on some guys, check on some big jobs, and make sure parts are ordered, you know, normal tech stuff. And what makes me, what I really get excited is when you see the guys come in at 7 o'clock and they go to those labs and they're getting their hands dirty. They're in there wiring their stuff up, and, you know, they're asking questions. You know, they're scared to ask me questions because they see me buried in the computer. But I'm like, if you guys have a question, stop me, and I will come back there and help you. This email will be there at lunch. It'll be there after 5, you know. But, you know, you get those guys come in and they're excited and they want to learn. It's like, these are the guys that make it enjoyable. You know, there's guys that are always going to be there that are forced to go there, but the guys that want to be there, the guys that are there at 7, they eat their lunch, they go right back out to the labs and they start working. I'm like, that's the guys that get it, and the guys that, man, that was loud. That's the guys that get it, and I really look forward to, you know, watching them grow. And I do the social media side of it, and in real life, I'm not as outgoing as I am online. I don't know how I got this persona, but, you know, it's kind of happens. But, you know, I'll follow these guys on Instagram. I tell them about the podcast, and, you know, I'm not supposed to, but I'm like, hey, you know, I have an Instagram channel, you know, follow me there. And one of the guys in my class follows me. I follow him back, you know. I always tell them, here's my email, here's my phone number. If you have problems, call me, text me, email me. I will help you out, you know. And I have guys all the time that, you know, text me, hey, I did this, and I remember we did this in class, and I used it, and it worked. I'm like, man, that's awesome. It just makes it all worth it.
Yeah, I get to talk to some of the former students and just check up with them, or they'll call me with a question of something, and sometimes it's so advanced, I'm like, oh my gosh, that's so new. I didn't even get my hands on that thing yet. And you know what's crazy about our field is it's so broad, so wide. You see all of us, right? Every person has a different like niche, we'll say, right? And so we're filling the need for everybody and for the knowledge and stuff, and backing each other up. Like, it's really cool to see that. So you see, like, people will specialize, like you mentioned, Chris Stevens, you know, Matt, you know, you see like a lot of those technicians, Reliable, you see a lot of them filling needs in certain areas in order to provide knowledge for certain, you know, certain parts of our business. And so you see Matt doing a lot of like the package units and commercial buildings and stuff like that. Well, you don't see me a lot on that. You know what I'm saying? Like everybody,
there's
you
a
see
spot for
some, but
everybody.
yeah, it's huge. It's great. It's beautiful.
It's great what's going on in the community right now. You know, pushing everyone to learn and be better and just to grow. It's a great time to be in the trades. That's for sure.
Yeah, it is. It's very interesting, this whole the social media thing. You know, I'm kind of blown away by it. I look back every like 2 years and I'm thinking there would be no way if you said 2 years ago I'd be doing this. And then you go back, like that's like the past 10 years has been like that. And it's amazing and crazy. And so it's very honoring, you know, in order to pass on what you know. And we all take great pride in making sure that when we do open our mouth, it's correct. You know, it's a positive thing. We don't go negative. We are just trying to instill knowledge and skills and trying to make sure that we're always teaching, you know, the best thing that we can, you know, and so we're always learning. That's the other thing. This thing's so broad that there's no way even like a 40-year technician is going to have like all the knowledge of all the different fields. Like talking about like from boilers and gas furnaces to heat pumps to cold weather heat pumps to mini splits to refrigeration to everything you're involved in. You know, you have everything. It is amazing. All the controls, all the zoning, the walk-in boxes, different versions of all kinds of HVAC related items that a lot of times end up equaling like 50% of the load in a building or more. And so that the person that is able to service those is highly valuable. Whether our culture necessarily supports that, it's actually true. And my thought is that you go and get a college degree, like it's okay. Like I was thinking of going towards like engineering, but I don't know, like with the trades, you can start working. So I had a person that was, I thought was very smart that I looked up to early on in my career. And he said, why would you pay to go to a school when you could get hired immediately to go in and decide if you want to do that for a living while you're learning it? Like, and I was like, that made sense. So that's actually, I took that advice and started going in. That's not to knock anybody that's doing a paid program at all. Like, because that's huge too. And you could do that at night too. You can get a job and you can go to school. And some places, like some locations won't hire you unless you have some type of either degree or you go through a certification program. And in that instance, I understand that. And you can also go to technical schools, which don't, like at night for the adults, they don't cost a lot of money. So you can do that.
I had someone else bring up that try it before you buy it mentality. I like that, you know, for the trades. You know, you can go to a trade school before you actually do it, you know, and you can spend the money and then not like it, you know. And someone else brought that up, you know, try it before you like it mentality thing, and I like that aspect of it. I mean, I bounced around for a couple trades. I started off as an electrician, and the market just tanked, and I got sick of doing the same thing over and over. I got stuck in like apartments, and I was traveling. It was the same apartment. And like, you be on a project for 6 months, you see the same apartment every single day. And I just want to jump off the third story, you know, balcony. And so, I mean, I still love doing electrical work. I mean, I do it at my house, and, you know, I'm doing it inside of units. I made a post yesterday talking about how, you know, I do electrical work, I do gas lines, and someone's like, you're not licensed to do all that stuff. I was like, you don't understand what I do for a job. And I was like, all this stuff is encompassing inside of a piece of equipment. I said, once it hits the wall, I can put a gas line on, I can do a water line, I can do a cord. Once it's past the wall, you know, it does encompass everything. But it's the trades are, I don't know what to say. I mean, it's where it's at right now, I feel. So
yeah. And HVAC, it's like one of those things, like you can learn carpentry, plumbing, electrical work by doing that. And so that's huge. That just becomes so valuable that if the current job in which you're working on, like for some reason that shuts down, it's like, okay, well then I can just go work over here, you know, or if it's a union hall or whatever, they can reassign you. Like, you're in need all the time. In fact, if anything, you're in need too much and you have to set up boundaries for your family life. And that's what I
Yeah.
encourage people to. Like when I go out to these whatever events and things like that, expos, a lot of times what I think like that's like almost my job, man. Like you get to be real with people and encourage them to like guard their family because they're telling you like what's going on in their life. And you're looking at them like, oh no, you're working all the time. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like you can't do that. It's not going to work out. You know, like you need to invest in your family and that's going to be the most important. And you're going to have to learn to adjust in order to make that the priority. You can't just, you can't just leave all the time. And on the opposite side, people don't have heat in the middle of winter. You have to be able to take care of them. And so it's a balance and you always have to be mindful of it. And so it's really cool to be able to encourage people like in that realm too.
Yeah, you got to figure out that balance. So me personally, if I know I have to, my kids have a game after school, I will start earlier in the day. So I make sure I still, it's different in the commercial restaurant game because there's generally always someone in there at 6 o'clock in the morning, sometimes 5 in the morning. So if I could get in there at 5 in the morning, I still work my 8 or 10 hours. I'm still coming home, catching my kids' game, eating dinner with the family. So you just got to learn that balance. You got to learn the trade-off. I mean, I'm addicted to overtime. I've always been that way. When I started off, I was so far in the hole that I had to do it, and it just became a necessity. And guys get addicted to that overtime, and they go out and they buy these big fancy trucks, these big houses, and you got to realize that some point in time you may not get that overtime, or you may have a family eventually, and you need to spend time with them. So I always try to tell the guys, if you want to do it, do it. Just make sure you don't become addicted to it. Don't have to rely on it.
Yeah, that's the new technician mentality. And I did that too. Like you can put in a lot of hours in the beginning and you can get all this knowledge base growing because you're put in a bunch of different situations. You can make extra money because when you're young, you're like, you need to be doing that overtime. You need to be banking that money. And guess what? You might be the first one in your around in your age group buying your first house because you don't have that debt. You have income coming in.
Yeah.
And especially with all the overtime, it's huge.
Have you noticed with the younger guys? We had a younger guy. He was probably 25, 26. He did a local community college HVAC program. He came out and worked for us for like 6 months. He worked for a hospital doing maintenance. When he graduated, he came to work for us. And good kid, smart, wanted to learn. But like he was like 40 hours is all I want. Like I don't want more than 40 hours. And I've noticed it more and more a lot with younger guys that, he actually ended up quitting. He got on call and worked like 52 hours. And then the next day he was on call, he worked like 54. I was like, man, that wasn't even a bad week. But he just like, it's not for me. So he went to back to work for the hospital where he just 40 hours and that was it. If it was an emergency, they called in a subcontractor. Have you noticed any of the younger guys in that mindset now?
It's hard to kind of say point a finger at a certain generation. I think so. I don't know if you heard Ty Brandeman's thing on Generation Z, and he relates it to this generation's better than this generation's better than this generation or whatever. Like, and he goes back like 5 generations and stuff like that. It was really cool to hear him. And so it's kind of hard. I think it really comes down to the person. Honestly, it really does. I think it comes down to also their family life. What their family is like. If their parents are hard workers or if they don't get to see that modeled. I think it just comes down to that. What I can say is, there's a lot less family units out there. And so it's hard to, I don't know. It's just, that is a little different nowadays, I think. But as far as the younger generation, I see a lot of like what I would consider old school mentality people. Like I feel like I am in the younger generation still. And they're really go-getters. It's just we might not see it all the time. So it's hard, man. I think you'd have to have like 100 people come through, like of that age group to see like the percentage to like have like a viewpoint on that particular thing. It's hard. It really is.
So my son, he's one of my apprentices. He's 20 years old. And I thought he'd be more on social media and stuff. And I'd post him and tagged it. I posted him on social media and he's like, I kind of got mad about it. I was like, you don't like social media? He's like, no, I absolutely hate it. I'm like, he's 20 years old and he hates it. I'm like, dude, you being new in this career, I said, you could document what you're going through, what you're learning. And I said, you could set a trend or a mold for like guys to come behind you. He's like, I don't want to part of that. I'm like, okay, whatever, man. It's weird that he's like that. I mean, I'm not knocking him for it, to each his own. I never expected it out of him.
Yeah.
So,
Well, like a lot of the students that I had in the school, a lot of them didn't like computers. They liked hands-on, right? That's why they chose that class. And I think I was like that. I was not on social media
yeah.
before doing YouTube. I was not on any social media whatsoever. Nothing, because I didn't care,
Yeah.
like I had the relationships with the people I had relationships with and friendships and stuff like that. But it's kind of like one of those things where like you recognize it. I recognize it now. It's like, this is a way for us to be able to help others grow. And so we choose to go through all the effort, all the extra things of all of the audio problems that we had tonight, like all of the things before the show, like trying to get set up, because it's like, hey, this is worth it, because you get to invest in other people.
Yeah.
And so a lot of the things that are in our way, some people probably like social media. I don't know. It's a lot of extra work,
Yeah.
but
it has its days. Some days I hate it. Some days I love it. It just depends.
Yeah. But it is really cool because you get to show others like the jobs that you're doing. Like the past like 2-3 years with social media, especially on Instagram, of everybody showing their hard work and their jobs at the end of the day and taking pride in that. And then the younger generation seeing that and replicating that type of thing, like meaning like they're taking pictures of their jobs and they're celebrating it. That's huge, dude. That is so cool. And like I used to take pictures. I mean, this dates me a little bit, but I was even using the old school. I was using the Polaroid, man, back in the day, the original Polaroid, taking pictures of my jobs and stuff. But even that, by that time, that was old. You know what I'm saying? But I was like, I don't care. I'm using this still.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
I like it, especially like you said, the guys taking pride in their work.
Yeah.
People, ask about, like, how do you get to the level you're at? How do you, do a good job? And I always thought about the same thing. Take pride in your work and just have integrity. Yes. Just do the right thing and have pride in your work. And the rest comes in. If you're willing to show that off, you've done a good job. And just take pride in your work and have integrity. And I mean, all the other pieces fall right into place.
Yeah. So with my original boss, like the second company, we'll say, if he came on the job site and he didn't like the way something looked, he would pay you to rip the whole thing out and redo the entire job. Is that crazy or is that not? Like, because a lot of companies would be like, no, don't do it like that. Do it better on the next job. He would actually he would make no money on that job and basically say, rip that out and start all over again. Well, guess what happened with all of us, as employees? We were like, oh crap, like we don't want that to ever happen. We don't want to be stuck on a job. So if it's a 5-day job, like some of those are 4 or 5 day jobs in existing homes, and so we didn't want to have to stay there a whole nother. It would be like 6 days. So one to rip it out and rent the whole, do it back in, put it back in, and that actually happened at that company. And so what I remember doing a job and then asking one of my coworkers, do you think Joe's going to point at that and say that that's not good enough? And you know what he said to me? He said, the fact that you're questioning whether the thing that you did is good enough tells you the answer already. You better darn well go over there, rip that thing back out and redo it. And I was like, oh man, he's right. And so you get in that particular personality. And that's one of those things I valued with him, because he's like, he set me up. There's no way I could get away with doing a half crap. Half crap job or something like that. Everything was pristine, man, level, perfect, like as best as you could possibly get it. And that was good.
Yeah. So the right way is rarely the easy way.
Right. Yep. Absolutely. It would always take me longer to do the jobs than other people. Like, well, no. Let me rephrase that. I would do more work on the jobs, and it would always be looking better, and I could get that same amount of work done at that time, but it would always take me longer to lay the job out.
Yeah.
Because I always made sure I had all the stuff in my service truck. I wasn't running out to the supply houses. That was not happening. Like I was not like, oh, I missed this one piece or whatever, I have to go run out. And you're talking about like I would put an order in for like, I don't know, it's like 40 different things for a job, or even more. It could be 100 things if it's a boiler, And so you want to make sure you have everything you need for the job site so you can roll right through it. But yeah, it would always take me longer to lay the job out so that I made sure I had every single thing figured out, and we just roll right through. So
yeah, I've done some walk-in, like I didn't change the boxes, but I've done like new piping, new evaporators, condensing units, outdoor units and stuff. And everyone's like, oh, just use soft copper and just roll it out. I'm like, nope, as I quoted a hard pipe, I'm hard piping the entire thing. It's going to be nice straight lines, perfectly mounted up into the attic. And guys like, well, that takes too much longer. I was like, well, guess what? I quoted it that way. The customer approved it that way. That's the way it's going to be. I'm not going to come out here and roll out 100-foot piece of soft copper and, straight line across, and it's going to be drooping in the ceiling. That's not going to be me. So it's definitely worth it. I got a question for you. So do you ever see like someone working on something else and like, man, I want to do that. I want to learn that. Do you ever do that?
Well, yeah, like all the time.
I think I'm crazy because like all the time, like I got buddies that do rack stuff, and I got buddies that do like big giant industrial cooling towers and stuff. I'm like, man, I want to do that. But I'm like, I don't want to start over. It's just like one of these days I'm just going to say, screw it. I'm starting over. I'm going to go learn this. So
yeah, I mean, all the time, obviously.
yeah, there's everything.
because-
Terrible plumbing, anything I see, I'm like, I want to do that. I want to do that. My wife thinks I'm crazy, so at least I'm not alone.
Nope, not at all. Not at all. Yeah. I mean, I always want to learn more. And then for me, I'm always running out of time. Like, so for me, a big thing is like time management. Everything that I do has to have like 3 purposes. It's crazy. And like, I'm explaining that to the different team members. It's like, we're doing this because we're going to set up for a video, and we're also going to use this at this, whatever trade show, or we're also going to make the plans for this to show the teachers so that they can build these things, themselves. And it's like, and then also we can post that on the website, and then because of that, we can do a social media post about it. Like, it's like you have to figure out how to like knock out multiple things at one time. And like, I'm always racking my brain, like, how can I get all this stuff done? And like, that's, here we're like, do we need more team member? Like what team members on our team in order to make the things that we want to do? We want to make more educational products as well. And, it's always a time game. And so when I see all those, the equipment, I would love to go shadow somebody like for a day or something, doing something I don't normally do. It's like, you don't have time. And so when you do have time, you're like, well, I need to be encouraging other people. You know what I mean? Like when I can go to a school and maybe speak there and do something with the students there and encourage them. So it's like, it's a trade-off. You just have to be okay with it. But I definitely feel exactly what you're feeling. And I just wanted to say, Pat, that, I've been watching your posts, and I've been looking at what you've been doing, and you're an awesome, nice guy. You care about people, and that's why I wanted to be on. And I just appreciate you targeting, like teaching what you're teaching and going over what you're going over in the kitchen, like sphere. Because it hasn't necessarily been targeted and taught, like say online. And so I've been looking at what you've been doing since the beginning.
I appreciate it.
And I've been pretty encouraged and excited, and I like to see what you write about and stuff like that. Like, you're a very positive person. You lift a lot of people up, and you're a really good guy. So that's why I wanted to be on.
I appreciate it. So, well, that being said, let's tell everybody where they can find you at if they don't know. I'm sure everyone knows you're a pretty big deal, and I'm honored to have you on here. But go ahead and tell everybody where they can find you at and where they can get the information from you. It's been a blast having you on here. Your story is amazing. It's cool to see you go from watching guys steal time, trying to get them back in the van, not working there, and where you went from those days. It's a great story, man. I appreciate everything you've done. So.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, so our website is acservicetech.com. And so we have our products there. We also have our products on Amazon. And so you can get the books and workbooks and quick reference cards there as well, and the posters. I love to see those posters hung up in schools across the country, because even having those posters hung up like in front or above the like units that they're working on, like a walk-in box, you have that like right there, and the teacher can point to those, or you have the refrigeration cycle thing and you can point to that and like, hey, this is where superheat is occurring at,
Yeah, I'm gonna definitely get some of those for Safesa. I'll have Safesa order a couple. We can hang up when I teach refrigeration. So
yeah, that's cool. Yeah, so AC Service Tech and Amazon. So we have them there. We also have our Instagram, so our AC Service Tech handle. We are there on LinkedIn, Facebook. So we have TikTok. So we're kind of all over. Our main thing that we do are like long instructional videos that we take a lot of pride in, are on YouTube. Those are the ones that take just a lot of time and effort, to put out a free video basically, but it's worth it, to try to get the teaching out. And so that's what we do. So Yeah,
You
thank you
do.
for having me on, Pat. I really appreciate it.
I appreciate it. So do you do one video a week? Is that what you do?
Yeah. Yeah, we
So,
target one video a week for
okay.
our main YouTube channel,
Yep.
and then we'll put out a mix of educational posts and educational shorts, we'll say, on Instagram, Facebook, things like that. But the videos on the other social media platforms other than YouTube are not every day.
Sweet.
So
Sweet. All right. Thanks for coming on, man.
thanks, Pat. Appreciate it.
Yep.